Well, that's a gathering of people for peaceably assembling for purposes of expression on public land. All right. Now, about many years ago in Montana here, when I was real little, I had dreams and visions and stuff, and it turned out that those visions and dreams came true. Some of them, anyway. One of them happened to be this thing called the World Family Gathering, which was the first, known as the first Rainbow Gathering. And first Rainbow Gathering was in July 1st to the 4th, 1972, near Granby, Colorado, at a place called Strawberry Lake in Tennessee. Now, how'd that all come to be? Well, when I grew up, I went in the military. In the Navy, I got out, and I was a little bit odd. So I moved into a tree in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and San Francisco, and I was one of the 12 street people in the entire Haight-Ashbury for a short while, and then all of a sudden, in November 1966, I got out in September 66. In November 1966, by pure accident and all kinds of good vibrations, the thing known as the hippies came to be, and the Haight-Ashbury became known as the home of the hippies. And for some people, hippies were dirty and wild and strange and full of drugs and all kinds of stuff. But I have a different version of what I call a hippie, and that is a hippie, which is a humanly interested person with a friendly eye. Now that's a hippie. So right off, you see, I have a different translation about a few things concerning how we all live. Now, in the Haight-Ashbury, we had these things called crash pads, and there would be hundreds of people. Actually, by the end of November 1966, it was over 2,000 street people living in the Haight-Ashbury. And they had these various places called crash pads. We'd call them squats. And in these crash pads, well, people would be there, and we'd all be like sitting up against the wall with our feet in the center. And if you had to go to the bathroom, which didn't exist, but if you had to go to the bathroom, you would, people would be literally picked up and passed out, and then passed back in again because no one could walk. And of course, we tried to enjoy what is known in the Japanese world and the places in the Far East as the utmost in respect. In other words, we gave each other as much space as possible. You probably heard stories about orgies, people making love with hundreds of people all around. Well, that did happen, but very seldom, and I never actually made any of those orgies, which I was looking for all the time. But never did find one. But I did find, you know, we did have a lot of people living in these crash pads, and if it came down a certain time in the Haight-Ashbury, there was a bunch of folks that came along, and the United States government, for example, began to introduce speed into what's called LSD. And when that happened, by just all kinds of weird things started happening in the streets. People started getting hurt. People started robbing each other's gang activity, you might call it. In those days, it was just gangs of toughs who would run around, and they'd come up and they'd bang on the doors of the crash pads, and you'd know who you were with. If you were with good people, then everybody got up, just like the Irish song goes, Katie barred the door. And we'd all bar the doors and windows, and we wouldn't let the little bad boys come in and beat the hell out of us and rob people. But if everybody in the place started getting up and running for it, then everybody in the place got up and ran for it. And if you were smart, you ran too. And that was kind of an odd way to live. So on down the trail, it came about in outside of Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, in 1968. We had a gathering. And it wasn't a rainbow gathering. It was a gathering that's called by the Spirit, you might say. There's people came in from all over the country. It was mentioned in a book called Lucifer's Hammer, which is in science fiction, about hippies from California that came to Colorado for the end of the world. In fact, there's a movie on the hippies that's being shown on TV, and there's a part in there about Walter Cronkite. He used to be a news guy. And he came out to this Colorado mountain we were sitting, and he sat there on the side of the mountain and talked about the end of the world and why we were there. And if you look carefully, you'll see just behind Walter Cronkite, you'll see a little fire, and you'll see a coffee pot, and you'll see a hand reaching across for the coffee pot. That's my hand. That's like, you know, my sort of only real claim to fame. But anyway, so at the end of that, we walked 7 miles to a place called Sugarloaf Mountain, and we held a circle on top of Sugarloaf Mountain, and then we kind of moseyed on. But while we were there was a camp with a couple hundred family up in the hills. We called them family, brothers and sisters, because we didn't know their names. And it was a good way to know each other. Hello, brother. Hello, sister. You can always tell because, well, sometimes. And it got to be we don't really care. Some of the brothers look like sisters. Some of the sisters look like brothers. You know, people just look like people. So we just call them family. But they were up in the hills, and there was a guy, and his name was Ken. And Ken was a mountain man. He came all the way from Florida. He wore leathers. He was good, tall. He spoke strong. He was a leader type. And he was up on that mountain in the middle of the night. A couple guys rolled in a pickup truck, and they got out and they fired off a gun. And they said, you know what? We want that woman right there. And they took this woman right there, and most of them took her in the bushes, and they assaulted her. And my friend Ken, who was the leader, he was going to stop these folks. So he said, okay, everybody, come on, let's stop them. And he stepped forward, and of course, no one else did. And they pistol whipped him, and they left huge scars in his face. And they beat him into the ground, and they assaulted the woman, and they left, and they left. I wasn't there at the time, but that was the very moment, you might say, that it came to my mind that, you know what, there had to be something where people would know that when something like that happened, that they'd get up and not just be there and leave someone to do it all by themselves. And of course, among the carny people, carnival people, even to this day, they have a saying that's, hey Rube. If you've ever been in a carny and you're working one of the carnies, and even now in modern days, when they say hey Rube, every single one of them shop people, got all those little game things, close up their shops and they'll come run. Now back in the old days, in Old West and late 1800s, when there was people traveling through carnies, why local towns would get upset with the carny people, and they'd come out and want to whoop on them. And so they'd say, hey Rube, so all these guys would get up and come out, and they'd fight off whoever, and then they'd move on. Well, in a place called Wheeler's Ranch in California, which was one of the great sort of communes, the cry was Gadaba, which means look out or come here or look the hell out. Even to this day, if you run into folks and you say Gadaba among them, people from Wheeler's Ranch would still know what that means. So at that point, I decided what needed to be done was something very much like the carnies, and so down the trail we began what's called the Shanti Sena, which means peace scenes. I know it's translated in Hindu as peace army in some places, in Sanskrit, and it's sort of reputed to be something that Gandhi. Well, I was in the military, and so was a lot of the family that helped start the gatherings, and none of us wanted to ever join the army ever again. And so we're not into the army, we're into peace scenes. We try to keep the scene peaceful. Now what does that mean? Well, it means that in the middle of the night, in the middle of the gathering, if you happen to hear somebody yell help or Shanti Sena, it means that somebody actually needs you. And there are people like me, individuals, who will get up day and night, 24/7, no matter what. And of course, for people like myself and many others, we do this year round. And you know, if one of you were to jump up and start whooping on each other right here, why, I'd probably leave. No, I would probably do something about it. Okay. Now, I have worked also as a bouncer in saloons. I've been a bartender. I've worked in mental institutions as a, you might say, as a guard. So I have, you know, that kind of training also. But, and I also do security work for things like festivals and all that, which I kind of sometimes hire out to do for donations. But basically, myself and a whole bunch of other folks that kind of come along came to a realization that somebody ought to get up. And so we decided it was going to be me and whoever else. Now, at a gathering, which by the way, next summer in Montana, somewhere in the National Forest, is going to be the annual gathering of the tribes.
Oh.
Now, this is a world family gathering. It's international, national, all those things, but I actually prefer calling it the annual gathering because it happens 1st to the 7th now, every year. And this next summer, Montana, somewhere in the National Forest on public land, is going to be this gathering. When that happens, there's going to be thousands of families come in from all over the country, no matter what they say. I mean, the world's going to end in, what, 26 days or something. But as soon as that ends, afterwards, we're going to have the rebirthing gathering next summer. Now, if you come in peace. We ask for no weapons. We discourage drugs and alcohol. Abuse. Now, we really try not to, I'm speaking as in the grander way, we try not to like outlaw too many things at the gathering because after all, you see, outlaws outlawing outlaw don't really make much sense. And so the government kind of thinks of us sort of being outside the law, and as we know, for every law there's an equal and opposite outlaw. Well, I happen to be one of those. So, but if you were to come to the gathering and get yourself in trouble, now, I'll just take like a simplest example of all. If you were to come to the gathering and you come in peace and you come through the gate, front gate, and people say welcome home, show you where to park, and you get out and you're walking into the gathering and there you are, and all of a sudden just somebody just come up and just punches you in the head for no reason. Because they don't like the way you walk, they didn't like the way you talk, and they didn't like the way you act. Now this is a very rare occasion, but you might holler hell for Shanti Sena, and so what happens then? Well, if there's somebody about half conscious, they will come up and they will help you. Now, what would happen if you were seriously hurt? Well, then there's a process. We try to work out things internally, which means that we try to have what's called a Shanti Sena circle, which would mean we try to get the victim and whoever was the perpetrator together and try to work things out that way. If that can be worked out internally, then we try to do that. And sometimes this has worked out. Now in cases, there have been cases, of course, since about 45 years of doing this, this would be the 43rd gathering. We've had a number of people over the years who just don't quite get the point. We've had a very few sexual predators that have actually showed up at our gatherings. For some reason, people think that hippies are very loose type people, that they're into drugs and therefore they can pretty much do whatever the hell they want. So we kind of help them understand that that's not the way things happen. Now, if you were to be actually harmed to the point that you wanted to file a complaint with the police, then what happens then? Well, somebody like me will support you, the victim. It isn't the rainbow family, because as you know, in case you don't know this, rainbow family doesn't exist except in the imagination. We are the rainbow family tribe of the Magi nation, which means that we only exist as brothers and sisters and as people and as family in our hearts and minds. So, anytime you choose not to be my brother or sister, why you just say, hey, I ain't your brother, I ain't your sister. That may not change my heart, my mind, but I can accept your prospect and where you're at. So, if the rainbow family doesn't exist, then who supports the victim? Well, me. As an individual, over the years, I've supported a number of people who have been victimized. In fact, to the point where I have made what is called a citizen's arrest, which is how we do things. If you were, for example, we had a guy that came out of Florida in 1998. He killed a woman down there. He came to the Rainbow Gathering to hide out. When he came, he called himself Bongo Bill. One of his neighbors in Miami, Florida, which is where he was from, recognized this guy. She lived right near him. And she said, hey, this guy's wanted for murder in Miami, Florida. He's hiding out here at the Rainbow Gathering. Or he's here visiting the Rainbow Gathering, or he's just gathering. Either way, we realized that this person actually needed to go and what? Cover his back trail. He left a big pile of something just down the road, and he needed to go back and clean it up and take care of it. So we went and we approached this cat. We surrounded him, you might say. We found him, we surrounded him in a very gentle way. We asked him, invited him, and we did exactly that. We invited him to come with us, and in fact, at one point we invited him to surrender to the police and go back to Florida and deal with his circumstance and situation. Now, who did that? Well, every single person involved in that, every single individual involved in that was at risk for a number of things. For example, if the cat didn't happen to be the right person, and we imprisoned him, or took him, or captured him, or whatever, that's called kidnapping. Then there's assault, because we held him, but we didn't actually grab him too much. We just held him enough to ensure that he wasn't going to move away from us. So that's called imprisonment. All of these things are charges which can be laid against any person who takes up the idea of being an individual making a citizen's arrest. However, we went through the process anyway, and sure enough, he agreed to surrender to the police. And he went back to Miami, Florida, and he was tried and convicted, and he's serving life in prison without parole. Now, if I as an individual had been wrong, then he could have put me in jail myself, or the person could sue me personally. But he couldn't sue, say, the Rainbow family, or you, or anyone else. So it's we support the victim. We try to get as much clarity as possible. We have had circumstance. We had an extremely odd circumstance, which I'll bring up because it's kind of an odd thing how things work at the gathering. This was in 1997 at the Oregon gathering. The annual gathering was held in Oregon. And a guy and a gal were at a camp, and they had an argument. And the guy left and went to town. And some other guy said to this young gal, hey, come on over to my tent. And for whatever reason, she went to the tent and went in the tent. And a couple hours later, her boyfriend came home, and he said, where's my gal? And she was coming out of this tent, this guy. And the boyfriend said, what's going on? And she immediately said, oh, he sexually assaulted me. He raped me. So we went, oh my God. So of course, a bunch of us got invited in on the circumstance because people called for Shanti Sena and they called for help. And so we got a circle of people together to go and check out what actually happened. And so we had a couple of very trusted, good, strong sisters. And we asked them to go over and interview the woman. And so they went over and interviewed the guy and interviewed the gal, and then they came back. We said, well, what happened? They said, well, what really happened was this. The guy and the gal went in the tent. They didn't really have sex. He didn't actually sexually assault her. She just didn't want to tell anyone and her boyfriend what they were actually doing. Okay, well, what were they actually doing? What they were actually doing was they were sticking their fingers with pins and sucking the blood. They were having a version of vampire sex, which was kind of weird. And so our women, sisters, then explained to the gal that, you know what, things like AIDS and all kinds of things can come from things like this, and maybe you should think about this. And, you know, sucking blood out of somebody else's fingers. Now, we were able to clear that up right on the spot. Now, another circumstance happened, same kind of thing. Guy went in the tent. He was going to massage this gal. They took their clothes off. And then at some point, he decided he wanted a little more. He jumped on her. She complained. She did not want to go to the police office. She did want to be dealt with. This was in California. We happen to know people that were counselors in a sex therapy counseling scene in a nearby town. It happened to be some of our people that we knew. And so, by agreement of the victim, and by agreement of the perpetrator, and by agreement of the other people involved, this guy, instead of the gal filing a complaint with the police, the victim agreed that this guy would go to counsel. And so he did. And so we also obviously followed up on it. Now what does that mean? Well, that means that sometimes there are things that happen in gatherings, just like they are in the real world, and sometimes it doesn't work out that you can handle it through the courts. There are a lot of people who live in the streets. There are lots of really rough ways that you can deal with stuff. What we try to do, if you're at a gathering and you have to do something stupid and you harm somebody, we try to treat you the same way we would a victim. Which means, basically, unless you're tried and convicted, you're innocent until proven guilty. Even if you admit to the crime, we still try to treat people with respect. Now, what are we after? Well, we're after trying to prevent, obviously, vigilante violence, which can happen with any mob of human beings. We try to work out something where people actually sort of feel like they have gotten some satisfaction from whatever's happened. Now, if you do come to a rainbow gathering and you do harm somebody else, then there are a number of people. Now, it used to be just a few, but now there's thousands of people who come to the gathering who have at one point or another dealt with some sort of Shanti Sena movie. And we all have eyes. And so if you were to come, say we have somebody, there's a guy just got released from prison here just the other day. His name was Jose Antonio Ramos. He was a child predator who we captured in 1986 in Pennsylvania. Now, and I mean we captured it as in we found him with a child, found that he'd sexually molested another child, and we followed up and got him convicted and put in prison. I had supported the victims who were the family, and we put this guy in prison for years and years and years. Now, Jose, that is now out of prison, was to come back to a gathering, which some people would say, there's no way you would ever want to come back to a gathering. But on the other hand, sometimes they do. In which case, we do what we call tagging. We recognize who he is, and we inform everybody in the gathering that we possibly can. We pass the word around. We ask people like Jose and anybody else that's been convicted of some sort of predator crime, if they do come back to a gathering after they've gone through whatever their process has, we ask them to find a sponsor. Find somebody to be fair witness for them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In other words, you have to have somebody with you. You don't come to your kid village if it's child predation. You don't obviously go to women's circles if you like sexually assaulted a sister. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. But if you happen to do that, you will have somebody with you all the time who's your sponsor, who's with you 24/7. And you then you know then that you're not going to be in the process of committing some sort of crime. Now, that may sound kind of weird and harsh and strange, but we do that. And sometimes we have people that we've been doing this with for years and years and years. Now, why is it we do this? Well, everyone has the right to peaceably assemble. You're innocent until proven guilty. If you're a victim, you need to be supported. In our society, and particularly among the outlaw world, which we are sort of on the edge of or are, and are considered as such, calling police just doesn't work sometimes. I've had friends of mine who called the police in circumstances where they were harmed, and the police came to their homes, and instead of following through and arresting the perpetrator, the person who was harming them, in fact, the police walked around their homes, walked around their yards, calling things that they shouldn't have growing in their yards, and arrested my family, my friends, who are the victims, instead of the perpetrators. So calling police sometimes ain't that easy. The same thing happens when you're out here in one of these camps. What do you do if somebody's a thief? What do you do if somebody robs you or kills somebody? What do you do if you're on the street? Well, I try to encourage people to do the same kind of Shanti Sena scene that we do at the gatherings. Because the gatherings are lots and lots of different kinds of people who don't know each other. And which means that instead of back in the old days, in the old hobo camps, in the 50s and 40s, 30s, because they still exist in Montana, if you were a thief or you killed somebody in the camp, they'd bury you under the fire before they left. That was just one of the ways they kept track, kept some form of justice going in these homeless camps, in the hobo camps. Well, obviously, we're not into having something like that happen. So we need some other way to deal with it. And so the way we figured out how to deal with it is you have to stand up together. So if you're at a gathering, or you're out on the street, and you hear somebody holler help, Shanti Sena, then it's really what? You have a choice. You can either turn, go to these people, find out what's going on and help out, or you could always dial 911. But you know, a lot of times when you're in the street, you haven't got much other choice. So what you got to do is find people like me who will stand up with you if you're a victim. And all over the country now, we have kitchens operating all over the United States 24/7, year-round, that feed people in the streets. We have crews that are working out here in the Hurricane Sandy in Union Beach, New Jersey right now. There's a whole rainbow response team out there cooking food and looking after people out there in a firehouse. You can join up anytime. And wherever you go, in any of the rainbow camps, anywhere in the country, you're going to find the same sort of circumstance, hopefully. You're going to find people that are going to respond to the call, Shanti Sena, or help. People who are going to stand up with you. People who are going to stand with you. I hope you do. Next summer here, I have every hope that there will be the thousands of families that come here, and come through Missoula, and come through all of western Montana, and all through Montana. I would hope every single one of them is pure, gentle as a lamb, and white as snow, and just the nicest human beings on earth. But if they happen to be not that good a person, well, I hope that they will show some respect, that they'll come to the gathering in peace, that they'll come without their weapons, that they'll come with the idea of gathering with other human beings and other brothers and sisters and find out that it's really okay to live in peace on the earth with one another and not harm one another. And if you happen to be a predator and you think that it's going to be easy to come to a gathering and mess with the children or mess with the people, you will find that there are 1,000 eyes. there watching you. And there are thousands of people who will get up and they won't answer the call of Shanti Sena. They won't answer the call of help. And they will come and deal with you. We would hope that they would. The last thing I want to say is, if you happen to be coming home to the Rainbow Gathering and you happen to hear that about the front gate of the Rainbow Gathering, well, the way the front gate of the Rainbow Gathering actually operates, regardless of whatever you may have heard, and whatever you might even have seen or witnessed, the way a Rainbow Gathering front gate operates is the way all the gates of the gathering operate, which is open, free to all. We try to ask for nobody to be drunk on the gate, working the gate. We ask people not to drink alcohol on the gate. We ask people not to spam, not to panhandle people on the gate. We ask people, in fact, if you want to work front gate of a Rainbow Gathering, which I encourage every single person to do, to simply welcome people home, show them where they're to go. Now, there have been people over the years who thought that they were the folks running the front gate of the Rainbow Gathering, and they kind of put people off because they'd be way drunk, or they might be panhandling them for cigarettes or whatever. So we kind of ask for that respect. You know, it's sort of like in the Salvation Army, at least you get to get in the door, you sit down, maybe you have to pray before you eat, but at least you get in the door. And so we sort of ask the same thing for a gathering. We ask people to be able to come home, be welcomed home, and be at peace at home. And if you are in trouble at a gathering and you happen to not know where to go, well, you can go to any one of the kitchens, places like Kid Village, places like the front gate, and ever occasionally you will find people that are walking around carrying little radios who want to be Shanti Sena people. And they're there waiting for something to happen. And they might walk right by you even if you're in trouble while they're busy talking on that radio. But reality is that they're really wanting to look after each other, and that's why they're out there doing what they do. And out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have come to gatherings, we have nearly every single person at some point or another, we would hope, would come to understand the nature of keeping the scene peace. Shanti Sena. Everyone is welcome, and please come, and if you're in the area, and next summer, please come early to the gathering, help us set up, and keep the peace, and know this, everyone is your own security, which means that every single person is on your own in the gathering. Every single person is responsible for yourself. But if you do need help, you can holler help, or you can holler Shanti Sena. And then someone like me, maybe not as, you know, weird looking, but someone like me might get out, and will get out, and come, and support you, and help you, and so be safe. And see you next gathering. Peace love.
This is a reminder to everyone in the world, you are in this band.
Tried to trick me there at the end. That was unexpected.
This is a reminder to everyone in the world, you are in this band.
Met this woman, she said, you haven't walked a mile in my moccasins, so how you gonna tell me what I said? How you gonna tell me if I sinned? Met this woman and she said, you ain't walked a mile in my moccasins. How you gonna tell me how I'm bred? How you gonna tell me if I've sinned? Rising up from within, there's a consciousness of the kinship of humanity. Yeah, rising up from within. There's a consciousness of the kinship of humanity. And when the animals are crying and the birds fall from the sky, there shall come a tribe of people from all races, classes, colors, and creeds, who by their actions and deeds shall make the earth green again. Shall make the earth green again. And they shall be known as the warriors of the rainbow. In Deuteronomy 23:12 it says, when you are camping out in the wilderness, you shall establish a place outside your camp where there shall be a shovel and a tool, so that when you go to make your waste, you may cover it over and leave it. The Spirit of the Lord passes through your camp in the nighttime, and if he finds it unclean, he will not bless you. Met this woman and she said, you ain't walked a mile in my moccasins. How you gonna tell me what I said? How you gonna tell me how I'm bred? How you gonna tell me what my sin is? Have I sinned? Have you?
Sort of way.
Yeah.
He's just acting.
I'm a good actor. I like
I've been
coffee.
removing the guy.
Not okay. I'm out of coffee. What am I to do? I'm out of coffee. Brother, I love you. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. You're saying, I am out of coffee. I am out of coffee. And I love you.
I think my bongos are falling apart here.
We are opening like a lotus flower in the wilderness. Love like the one. one, we are rising up in the spirit of the drum. Gather as one, we are rising up, rising up, rising up. We are rising up.
Yeah. I haven't heard that song in years.
you on 3. 1, 2, 3. We love you!
Yeah.
We win.